Welcome, friends. Today we will be examining the Ashlesha Nakshatra. I really love you guys because you are such a mystical group. Look, as you know, Vedic astrology is different from regular Western astrology. It has its own nakshatra terms, and these are divided into sections as well. So we don't just say Cancer sign and move on. We break it down into its sections and its quality changes. First of all, please subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and give me feedback. After many years of trainings, consultations, and so on, I have distilled some of my knowledge. I want to share this with you on YouTube. I hope it will be useful because I really love people who research themselves, who want to know themselves, who are self-aware. That's why I want to be of some help to them. Don't forget, if you know yourself, understanding your life becomes much easier because, for example, after I learned Vedic astrology, I criticized myself 90% less because I understood my codes. Now, Ashleshas, you are so sweet, but I'm a little afraid of you because you are very mystical and your perception is very high. Oh my God, it's like there's an MRI machine sitting in front of you, scanning everything, my friends. Mercury and the moon. Now look, our Ashlesha Nakshatra is a somewhat tough part of Cancer. As you know, the sign of Cancer is associated with motherhood, nurturing, caring, raising, the energy of compassion, and being home-loving. Yes, it is a very sacred sign. Cancer, of course, is very open to luck. Because it's moon-based, it moves forward with intuition. But in the Ashlesha part, there are more karmic events. For example, let's start with the first part, friends. What I have observed is this: mother, child, or daughter, grandmother, mother, and female ancestors. There is a karmic cycle related to this. What is it? Letting go, not being able to let go, holding on, nurturing, not being able to nurture. As you know, in these Vedic ancient teachings, it's referred to as the clinging star. So this clinging or completely letting go, raising a child in a neglectful way. For example, the mother is busy with her own affairs or caught up in chaotic situations in her own life. The child may have been neglected or may have grown up with other ancestors. A very healthy bond may not be established during childhood, or a very attached, overly strict and high standard mother figure. It's usually always like this. So instead of a very healthy bond, I've seen it manifest in these extremes. As you know, there's already the Cancer concept. You know, a Dharma related to protection and care comes into play. So in the subconscious, there can constantly be abandonment, being left behind, or a sense of loss related to ancestors and migrations. That's why the subconscious absorbs this information in this way. I must claim what is mine, protect it, and create a space. Because the soul will move on to Leo. Look, we're still in Cancer. It's the fourth sign, and it doesn't know the evolution of Leo yet. Being attached to their own family, their own tribe, their own very close ones, and then later stepping onto the stage to say, I. But right now, they're in the family, meaning they're saying we. That's why you need to understand Cancer a bit like this. And my advice to you is, if you have your moon, ascendant, or Mars in this nakshatra, be less critical and give people more individual space. You should observe a little. Your ability to observe is already very good because you are a natural psychologist. For example, Ashlesha Nakshatras are so sharp that you might sometimes be amazed at how well they understand people. I sometimes witness that they are even better than psychological or medical counseling. They really understand you, my friends. You know, just by making eye contact or hearing their tone of voice, you can instantly feel that they understand you. In other words, when you're explaining something, they truly become integrated with you. For example, if you have a friend who is from the Ashlesha Nakshatra, you might feel, yes, this person understood me. Okay, now I feel relieved. And that negative energy on you disappears. They understood me. There is someone who understands me. They gave me some advice. They truly understood me. Look, if you find yourself saying this, you are probably describing someone with Ashlesha Nakshatra, especially if their moon or ascendant is dominant, because they can see the background, the things you haven't even mentioned. As I said, this is like an X-ray machine. They are natural psychologists, really. If you have a friend like this, you are very lucky because it's like having a lifelong psychologist for free. But of course, it's not good for them because there might always be people around them who want to share their problems with them. So they might think like this, for example, well, I'm always positive and social, but people share their negative things with me and want to open up to me about them. This can sometimes be overwhelming for them, friends, because they absorb things like a sponge and can even sense what you haven't said. I've observed this a lot. Another point is that although these people are known to be very warm and compassionate, they only keep people they love, approve of, and have observed for a long time close to them. Look, you probably think you're loved by someone with Ashlesha Nakshatra because it's actually quite rare. So think of it this way. Cancer has a shell, right? That shell is its defense mechanism against the outside world. That's why sometimes they can be perceived as cold and sharp. Whenever they approve of you, sincerely and from the heart after observing you, that's when they let you in. So just because you're close to them, don't assume that you have a very strong bond with them, friends, because Ashlesha is a bit sharp in this regard. Since they can understand people very well, they've inevitably developed such a mechanism. Only those who are very close and intimate with them can truly understand that they are empathetic, emotional, a real healer, occultist, mystic, and someone with a powerful aura. Otherwise, from the outside, they may appear quite superficial, just like a normal person. In other words, people who are not liked by Ashlesha Nakshatras cannot perceive them, friends. Only those who are very close can see that depth, because they don't show it. This nakshatra is also a bit about changing personalities. For example, as you know, it's called the clinging star, and it's related to clinging. Their deities are the Nagas. The Naga deities are serpent gods. They are already intuitive. And you know what the snake concept is like, right? The reptilian brain is close to the ground and senses through vibrations. When these people enter an environment, since their eyes are already very sharp and intense, and because they have beautiful eyes, they can immediately sense the negatives, the wrong people, or anyone who might potentially harm them through vibrations. Sometimes people even ask, why did you think that way? Could this be a prejudice? Or how did you know that? They can get such reactions from people around them. Because for them, that knowledge is a Mercury moon concept. They draw that information from their subconscious friends. Sometimes even they are not aware of it. Their intuition is very strong. I know that good fortune tellers and good astrologers also come from among them. They use their feet very well, and they use their hands very well. They have dancing talent, the ability to twist their bodies, and a hypnotic quality. Especially among women, you can see that women who appear very naive and simple on the outside reveal a completely different hypnotic and creative side of themselves with people to whom they give sexual consent. People who have experienced that side of them know this very well. They can shift from one personality to another. They can be a professor with a professor or a child with a child. At home, they can be an excellent cook, while outside they can be a great, worker. In other words, they adapt extremely well to every subject and concept. The moon gives them a gentle energy, but it's very hard to get close to them on the inside. They have very complex relationships. Only very close people can really get into their inner circle. When it comes to forming an organic bond, they truly don't let anyone get close as a friend. You really won't be by their side. I guarantee you that. And now I'd like to give you some advice here. For example, to emphasize the Cancer concept here, use strong scents. If it's fruity, floral, vanilla, and so on, stay away from those. Avoid childish scents. Here I recommend sharper, stronger scents that say, I'm here. For example, I highly recommend woody or sandalwood fragrances. This suits Cancer Nakshatra, and especially its women, incredibly well. Because they have an attractive aura, they need to use strong scents. In other words, they shouldn't soften their temperament. A good eye makeup looks amazing on them. Other than that, for example, water, the water element. Even just taking a shower, the color blue, the color green, being in touch with nature. The remedy for this nakshatra in Vedic astrology, such remedies are suggested. These are things that correspond to planetary influences. They help to soften them. For example, the water element, buying a house by the ocean, living near the ocean, sitting by the sea, taking a walk, or meditating facing the sea. Trees, nature. Look, when you buy a place in the city or an office, there are lots of people, lots of stimuli. Here, the Cancer concept collapses, friends. You need to refine your privacy. For example, even if it's just an object, labeling it. It should belong to you. A name that shows it belongs to you. Like saying, this is my stuff. Like writing your name on it. For example, putting a name or a stamp on a laptop. It could be anything. Did you buy a house? Fencing in the villa? So it can't be an ordinary, open to everyone, glass-walled environment. You need to close off the places that belong to you. In other words, you need to refine them. It needs to be VIP. Not everyone can access it. Because what is the Cancer concept? There is a shell. You're not a Leo. Look, you won't be putting on a show. The shell, the background, you need to understand these relationships well. Besides that, what I can recommend is a male cat. The male cat makes this nakshatra very mystical. So some intuitions may open up. There are already a few nakshatras where Kundalini energy is active. When I say active, it can be revealed very easily. It can draw in that knowledge. Look here as well. For example, the snake-headed woman in mythology. They can draw in that genetic energy of the Kundalini. These are nakshatras that can experience enlightenment all of a sudden. Generally, giving birth to a girl is considered beneficial. It can be good for the mother-daughter relationship and for some karmas, as I mentioned earlier. They may experience life-changing events. There are some karmic events related to birth and matters before birth. Children come by choosing. If you are a mother, your child has chosen you to come to. That is special. Because in Ashlesha mothers, there is also a karma related to their own mothers and their lineage. So these are always specially chosen people. That's how it is. That was my observation. Another thing is, if an Ashlesha Nakshatra is your friend, it means you have an amazing psychologist for life. They are the kind of people who are such good listeners and so perceptive that they can even surpass the quality of paid therapy sessions, and they guide you well. But here is my advice to you, friends, about things that are negative for you. That is, you are very self-critical. For example, you have very high expectations of yourself. Approach things more calmly, simplify your life, and don't compare yourself to others. You can keep a journal about how unique and special you are. I did this, I accomplished that. Even if it was something very small, I still managed to do it. They often use this phrase because they always achieve things through difficulty. Not everything in life may be presented easily. So you can write these things down. These will do you good. Other than that, I can recommend agate stone. You can also raise your Kundalini energy. For this, meditation, running, and exercise are a must. Even if it's just 5 minutes being in a forest or in nature, in touch with the earth. If you want to socialize, go to cafes or places where there are lots of people and socialize. But what will raise your quality, your planetary quality, is nature and the water element, the sea. It's the seaside. The more you interact with it there, the more you'll notice that luck, abundance, and inspiration open up and that you can think more clearly. Why am I saying this? Because when you look at its animal, look, the crab is an animal that lives in its own nature, on rocks by the seaside, that knows that concept and has mastery over it, a consciousness like that. Now, do you know what happens if you take this animal and put it in a very strange and opposite environment? Depression, a shutting down of perception, a decline in quality. Think of it this way. In other words, if every planet actually acts in accordance with its own nature, it can shine much more brightly. So for this reason, as I said, Leo Scorpio placements are very mystical and occult. Good astrologers and fortune tellers come from them. Because they draw communication and expression from Mercury and intuition from the moon, the combination of these two makes someone who is both sharp-tongued and intuitive and very hard to approach. But once they approve of you, once they let you in, they become incredibly addictive, an amazing lover, partner, or companion. This is a feeling that can only be described by those who are loved by them, by those who have experienced it. As I said, my advice to you is to criticize yourself a little less and to get closer to the concept of love, to your heart chakra. Instead of protecting people in an overly suffocating way or keeping them in your own space, you can let them be more free. Observe a little. When you hold on too tightly, nothing truly belongs to you. Try not to restrict people's freedom. Let them go. Even in that freedom, give them time to see if they will still choose you. Let's see if that's the case. Because here, due to karmic structure, there is an energy of not being able to let go in the lines of consciousness. Look, this applies to everything. Children, family, spouse relationships, friendships, or even an object. I can recommend breaking your karmas in terms of being dependent on and holding on to everything. As I said, that's it for this section. In the second part, we'll look at the padas. I want to examine a few Leo ascendants. I want to look at how things manifest in their lives. Let's leave this section here. Please don't forget to leave a comment and give feedback. I love you all very much, and I know that you are very special, my friends. Goodbye.